The 1990s were a war zone in the Eastern Conference, and at the heart of that battlefield were two teams, two forces, two identities, the Chicago Bulls and the New York Knicks, Michael Jordan and Patrick Ewing. But what if I told you that one of Jordan's fiercest rivals, one of the most iconic Knicks of the decade, actually wore a Bulls jersey? It happened for just 4 games. And the story behind it, it's strange, overlooked, and says a lot about how messy the post-Jordan Bulls era really was. John Starks is the name, and he wasn't just a role player in New York. He was a symbol, an underdog, a fighter, a guy who clawed his way from the fringes of the NBA to starting in the NBA Finals against MJ. Starks was emotional, volatile, brave, and for Chicago fans, he was absolutely detested. Starks was one of the few guys who didn't seem to back down from MJ, even if the results didn't go his way. And let's be clear, they didn't, but he still fought anyway. Michael Jordan's Bulls went 33-12 against Starks in their careers. But that didn't stop John from becoming a villain, the kind you love if he's on your team and hate if he's not. So when he put on a Chicago Bulls jersey in 2000, it wasn't just weird, it was almost sacrilegious. Let's rewind. In the late 90s, Starks had become a core piece of the Knicks, even after they began moving toward a new identity. But by January 1999, the Knicks had their eyes on Latrell Sprewell. Yes, the same Sprewell who choked out his coach in Golden State. The Knicks were willing to gamble. They believed his toughness aligned with their culture, and they needed a shakeup. To get Sprewell, they traded away Starks, sending him back to the Warriors, the team where his NBA journey actually began. But this wasn't a storybook homecoming, it was a pit stop. Just a year later, in February 2000, Golden State became the middleman in a multi-team trade that sent Tony Kukoc to the Sixers.
The Sixers acquired the swingman in a 3-team deal, although he missed 24 games this season. The steal of the trade could be for Golden State. They acquired Larry Hughes, who became the odd man out in Philly with Allen Iverson's shift to 2-guard. Here's a strange twist. One of the guys Bulls fans have grown to truly hate is now one of their own. Former Knick and now former Warrior John Starks is the final component in the 3-way trade.
The Warriors received Larry Hughes and Billy Owens, and the Bulls, they got a first-round pick, but they had to take on John Starks and Bruce Bowen to make the math work. That's how Starks ended up in Chicago, not as a free agent, not by his choice, but as a contract. From the moment the deal went through, Starks made one thing abundantly clear: he didn't want to be there. He said, and I quote, "If this team was in the playoff race, I'd love to be here, no question." But that's not the case. Every player that plays the game wants to win a championship, and I'm no different. For a 34-year-old guard in the twilight of his career, chasing a title meant everything. But the Bulls of 2000, they were light years away from contention. Gone were Jordan, Pippen, and Rodman. Gone was the dynasty. What remained was a rebuilding team full of young, unproven players. Starks didn't want to be a mentor. He didn't want to waste his last productive legs on a team that wasn't going anywhere. He tried to get out. He even offered to give up his salary if the Bulls would release him before the playoff eligibility deadline. But things didn't go smoothly. March 1st, that was the deadline. If you want to play for a playoff team, you need to be on that roster by that date. And Starks was running out of time. Eventually, the situation went to a labor arbitrator. Roger Kaplan ruled that yes, Starks could leave, but no, he wouldn't be eligible for the playoffs with another team. And that changed everything. With his title hopes dashed, Starks withdrew his offer to forfeit his salary. If he couldn't chase a ring, he'd at least get paid. He went on to say, and I quote, "We asked him if he would agree to be waived without us paying him, and he said no," said Bulls GM Jerry Krause. "He made it clear to me early that if he wasn't going to lose money, he was going to stay here." And so the Bulls waived him anyway, paid him his money, and let one of the most recognizable Knicks of the 90s quietly exit the United Center after just 4 games in a Bulls uniform. Now, contrast that with Bruce Bowen. Bowen was also part of the same trade that brought Starks to Chicago, but just 2 days later, the Bulls waived him as well. The Miami Heat scooped him up in time, and Bowen went on to play in the 2000 NBA playoffs. John Starks, on the other hand, he watched those playoffs from home. It was a heartbreaking sequence. a once fiery competitor, now sidelined by timing, bureaucracy, and a team he never wanted to join in the first place. By August of that year, he signed with the Utah Jazz, a team still clinging to playoff relevance. He'd spent his final 2 NBA seasons there, but he never got that ring. So let's zoom out. It's strange, isn't it, to talk about the Chicago Bulls, the team of the 90s, the blueprint for dominance, as a non-contender in 2000. Just 2 years earlier, they were celebrating their 6th championship in 8 seasons. They were global icons, the most dominant force in NBA history. And now, they were taking on unwanted contracts, trying to rebuild from scratch, getting turned down by a 34-year-old veterans who would have done anything to be on their roster just a few seasons earlier. It's one of the most rapid and jarring falls in sports history. It's also worth asking, could Starks have helped the rebuild? Not on the scoreboard maybe, but in the locker room perhaps. This was a player with playoff experience, grit, a chip on his shoulder. The exact kind of energy young teams often need to set a tone. Had things gone differently, had the Bulls made a tiny bit more progress, maybe Starks would have bought in. Maybe he could have helped mentor a young core and contributed to re-establishing a culture that was completely gutted after 1998 and really has never returned. But it wasn't meant to be. For the Bulls, for Starks, or for the fans hoping to see a graceful ending to a gritty career. John Starks wearing a Bulls jersey is one of those forgotten NBA moments, like Gary Payton in a Celtics uniform, or Dennis Rodman with the Lakers. It's jarring, it doesn't quite compute, and it speaks to just how weird the NBA can be, where formal rivals wear enemy colors, where legendary careers end up not with a championship, but with a waiver wire transaction. Starks may have not added another chapter of playoff heroics to his resume, but his journey, especially this overlooked stint in Chicago, adds depth to a legacy defined by fire, resilience, and rivalry. It's a reminder that even the greatest battles eventually come to an end, and sometimes those endings are stranger than fiction. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me in the comments what you guys think. What's another player you completely forgot wore a certain jersey? I'll be doing more of these deep dives on forgotten NBA stories, rivalries, and careers, so stay tuned for the next one. Thanks for watching. I'm Damian Peters. We'll see you soon.